But one of the things I wanted to do was, some people have had trouble pronouncing a few of the names. So when you get into the names, the name of the town is Daihmler, which some people don't know is really Cottondale, Coaling, and Brookwood, sort of a conglomerate of that. So it sits between Birmingham and Tuscaloosa. But a lot of the story takes place particularly in the first book, in Tuscaloosa, although I changed some of the names of things. As far as the family, you know Olympia and her daughters, Artemis, Demetra, and the mysterious daughter Nakara that you don't really know what's happened to till you get into the first book. The big bad name everyone has trouble with is the evil lady in Charleston, Cathedral Obregon. And I've had so many people ask, how do you say her name? It's like cathedral, but drop the C. And I was going to tell you a little bit, in case you don't know, the locations that are Tuscaloosa and Birmingham related, also Charleston. I told you Daihmler is, the Cottondale area, but there's a park in the book, Yerby Park, where some murders take place. That's really Bowers Park. Yeah, I didn't know if I should put Bowers Park's name or not, but Yerby Park is Bowers Park. And when you read the descriptions of the baseball field and the pads it's like you can totally get a vision. Okay, this is what this is. The Black Warrior River plays heavily in it. But one thing that some people don't know, there is a restaurant in all of the books called the Cobblestone. That's Cypress Inn. Oh. And when I wrote it, Cypress Inn was still a restaurant, so I didn't want to use the name. But since Cypress Inn is now closed, I'm glad it still kind of lives on in the books because the Cobblestone's very successful. It's not closing anytime soon. They go to Charleston in the first book and subsequent books. Every book there are Charleston scenes. And Clark familiarized me with Charleston, having lived there, and we go there every year. And where the oleander plantation, and later in the book, you will hear, later in subsequent books, you hear about the House of Duquesne. Both of those take place on Wadmalaw Island. It's a very spooky, heavy oaked Spanish. If any evil lives anywhere, it's going to be there in Charleston. So that plays a big role through the books later. So let's see. Clark Pitt. The Mammoth Theater District down here. The final big battle scene all takes place in downtown Tuscaloosa, and so everyone from here will know exactly what we're talking about. And I was happy to throw some carnage on the streets of my hometown. And they leave quite a mess. So, does anybody have any questions about anything?
I do. Yeah.
I know you do. There's a lot of humor in it with Zelda.
What is your favorite, your favorite humor in all the books? Like, which one is your favorite part?
I like it when the cousins squabble.
Yeah.
Because it reminds me of all of us growing up and the way we all just bantered back and forth. But I think Zelda is my favorite because she constantly tells the truth. And the stories she tells about her daughters are always so funny. And in later books, you eventually do meet her daughters. But her devotion to Olympia's family above her own is probably painful for her, but you never get it because she just masks everything.
Well, she can be so mean, but then she can be like the kindest, best friend.
She's very mean.
Yeah.
But also the biggest hearted person.
So you've kind of incorporated family, and you can kind of, if you've read them all, you can kind of get who you've made who, but
yeah.
Could you explain? I know you said Olympia.
Yeah, so Olympia is an amalgamation between both of my grandmothers. With the one we called Big Mama and when we had Mama House. Her strength is all my Mama House. Her frailty and love is all my big mama. But yeah, all of her wits and her strength and her courage are my mama house. And then Zelda is my Aunt Virgie. Just 100% my Aunt Virgie.
Is Aunt Virgie here?
No, she's dead.
Oh,
But she was Mama House's sister. And one of my favorite things to do as a child, I would always, when I was at my grandmother's, I was like, let's go see Virgie. And so we would drive out to Virgie's, which she just lived right down the road.
Now, where?
In Brookwood, in the Brookwood area.
Oh, okay.
And Blanchard House is actually kind of way more grand, but based on the House family property in Brookwood.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of land the kids always played on. The house is just, you don't want to get confused with the Blanchard House. The Blanchard House is not a mansion. It is a plank board farmhouse that has been built onto many times.
Yeah.
But it is not ritzy at all. But they are very wealthy. But they are very plain and simple too.
Do you ever stay there?
Where? Oh, at my grandmother's? Oh, I grew up there.
But do you stay there now? I mean,
It burned down. It burned down. Yeah, Britt was, I used to take him every year to take his picture on the wall in front of the house. And we went, Patricia, how many years ago was that?
At least 2.
Yeah, it was several years ago that I took him, and the house was actually currently on fire.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh my God. But I was like, but at least there was someone from the family here when it died.
Right.
So, but yeah, so that's, Blanchard House is kind of based on that. But our house was way smaller than Blanchard House's. But every time I would go, I always wanted to go see my Aunt Virgie. And she had a way of gossiping and talking with such a sense of humor. And she wasn't mean. She was very sweet, but she was very honest. And she was one of the funniest people I've ever known. And so, she didn't have magenta hair, but she is Zelda. So.
Do you want to tell them whose funeral?
Oh, so David died early, and that's when Clark came holding my book. You killed me off in chapter 4.
I'm the first to go.
But there's a lot of Clark and me in Seth and Yasmin. So, yeah, a lot of Clark. And for those of you that don't, they're not blood cousins. Yasmin is a step cousin. So, when Vanessa's jealous, she has a right to be. But it's still Alabama. It wouldn't really matter. But yeah, so Clark, there's a lot of Clark. Clark will read it, and he sees a lot of Seth and Yasmin in us.
And I love that a lot of our actual conversations and things that happened to us have made their way into the book.
Yeah.
And things that I know about your life are actually in the book.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful.
In book 1, all the packets of Cheez-Its under the chair in Salem and David's house is Clark. So, yeah, that's other people that, I don't know, I really based a lot of people, I guess, on me, and I didn't realize it, different parts of me, which he will point out when he reads, particularly in future books. As the characters get bigger,
Scarier.
and more scary people come. There's a future character named Mara, who is a very powerful witch, and she's completely insane. And yeah, she's 100% me. She'll be like, I don't like that person. I will burn them alive in their house.
Oh, goodness.
And think nothing of it.
Thank you. I'll take that side of you.
Oh, goodness.
So, but they're a lot of fun to write, and I hope that I will be writing a lot more. Right now, I'm currently writing 5. Two gets re-released in new form, and 2, for those of you that read 2 is changing. I put more Tuscaloosa references in it because there is a scene. Every 3 months, the Witches Association have a consort meeting, and it's always held somewhere else. In book 1, it's held in Charleston at the Oleander Plantation, which is where you meet the Obregon family, and how they're tied to the Blanchards. And in book 2, it's actually held at the University Club. Yes. It wasn't originally, how do I put this? It was originally, then I changed it for some reason, but then as I started re-editing it back, I'm like, I'm gonna put it back at the University Club. And so, but yeah, every 3 months there's a consort meeting, and lots of things happen at it. It's where all the witches come together.
Your publicist said not to be writing anything else but the Blanchard series
Yes,
right now?
so when he took over and started representing me, I told him about all these other book ideas I had. One about our family, I've been writing for years, and he said, yeah, put all of that in a drawer, it's not happening.
I have to stop you a lot.
Clark stopped me the other day. I pulled,
Open the drawer?
I pulled,
I get it. It's a lot to work on for a long time.
Yeah.
But when you get out of that mindset, start writing the story,
Yeah.
you lose your place.
yeah,
You know? And so I just encourage him, 5's almost done, finish 6, and you're done with this forever. You
So
can write
6 is
whatever
the
you want.
end?
no.
Okay.
If it's successful,
Okay.
what I realized, and this might be interesting if you start reading them again, these are all prequels. The story hasn't happened yet. The story are the children that haven't been born yet.
Okay.
You're reading, you're reading, they start coming in 2. But you're reading about how the world and their family, well, you're basically finding, how did these people get to be this way? What happened that's made them have to do the things they're having to do to protect the world? And where did they come from? Who did they come from? And what had they been from? All of this is how they get to be the way they are. So my plan, if it's successful, if it becomes a Netflix series, the first 6 books are the first 3 generations. The 4th generation is the action, and I will probably have 5 books in that series. Those of you that have read this, I know you have. So when you get further in the books, book 3, something goes wrong. Some people get flung to the past, and you meet young Olympia when she's in her 20s. And she and Zelda and her sister Pastoria are very young. And Clark wants me to do a standalone book about young Olympia's life and how she got to be there.
Well, it's all in the 60s, and they're very vain, and seeing them young, they're very powerful, they're so confident, and they're all potheads. And it's just make for a really cool story.
So I will give you, Olympia is very regal. Olympia is very regal. She's the wise, matronly, sage everyone comes to. Imagine when her granddaughter Fable is flung back to the past and it's like, opens a box, like, does grandmother have weed? And it's like, and her grandmother is the vainest, meanest thing you've ever met. She is nothing like she is old, and it shocks everybody. But young Olympia is, and Olympia's in every book. She may not always be alive, but she's in every book.
So will we actually be time travel in the later
Yes.
volumes?
3rd book is greatly taking place in the past.
Okay. But
Yeah.
not going back and forth.
Well, there are people in the present day trying to find out what happened to the ones that disappeared.
Okay.
But you meet lots of Blanchards you've never known from the family history. And there is a tiny bit of time travel in this. So Avery was talking about she got to the point where the family is threading. And what threading is when you move through everyone with your bloodline to try to connect. Like, let's say I'm trying to connect to my cousin Denise. I may mentally tap in to my mother, to my aunt, to my cousin Brittany, keep going till we're trying to find Denise in the thread. Well, Salem's missing from the thread. and Olympia has to find out what's happened to Salem. And what has happened is Salem has sent herself into the past because of something, and Olympia has to find out what it is. You all now know it's because her husband and her child has died. And she can't face it, and she's trying to change it.
Oh.
And she's trying to reverse the accident that killed them. And so that there's a tiny bit of time travel in that.
Awesome.
I do love that everyone has a very distinct power. And they don't share many, but the offspring, as you move further along, have similar powers but stronger than their parents. And so in book 3, it's no one is doing anything, it's the unborn child.
The unborn child
Has the power.
has cast this spell.
And so they can't control it.
Yeah.
Which is really, I think, brilliant.
Basically, the mom, they're talking about the past, and the mom, they're reflecting, and all of a sudden, boom, half the family's gone. The baby did it. So, you know, how do you control a fetus? And you get to, the family becomes, there are some members of the family that become extremely powerful to the point that you have to use lots of care and be a very good steward of what you're able to do. So, and the Blanchards are good people, you know, a couple.
I think what stood out to me too is that there is, because of their southern family, there is this theme and tie to God, which you don't find in most novels about witches. And I love how it's all tied together, like we're stewards of this earth, and this was given to us by God, this power. And so, how do we take care of that, and what do we use it for?
Right.
Source of conflict.
Exactly. And so some of the people in the book do believe in God, others don't. But it is just a great debate that takes place the whole time. And I really like that aspect too, because it's very realistic.
Yeah.
That's what I've explained to people, because I said some people will be like, witches, I don't want to read about that.
Right.
And I'm like, no, it's not, like, they're not bad. Like,
And it's a
they're
very
not
fair.
evil.
Basically,
like,
from the
witches.
lore, God has bestowed this power to some people to protect the earth He created, and the people who can't protect themselves. Some people have gone the wrong way with it, but they are always talking about protecting the natural order of things, and that's why they're here. And as you get in, as you get into subsequent books, the role of God becomes bigger. But I don't want to give that story away for people who haven't gotten that far yet. But there is a really big purpose, and there's a reason these people are here. And God literally mixes into the family in certain later books. It becomes a big role. And protecting the power He's given certain people.
Is your mama in this book?
So
Did you know the mama?
Mother is going to, she's a future character that hasn't entered yet. Yes, I can't give that away. But I know where something's going. And so I've had to reserve some people for later.
Can I help you out?
Oh, I think I know her well enough. You could call her Zelda as well. But no, I know who she's going to be. You just haven't met that person yet.
Am I not gonna be a nice person?
You're going to be a comic relief person.
Wrong.
Wait, as bad as Zelda?
No one's ever as bad as Zelda.
Well, thank you, Micah.
You're welcome.